and taking pictures while being behind the wheel. I figured that maybe that wasn't exactly the experience that I wanted. So, but they also offer boat safaris, and there's the walking safari. So basically, the whole park is sort of layout like here's the entrance, and that's where like all the safaris leave. But then halfway at the top, you know, that's where all the safaris have a break point. So basically, you can sort of yoing 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 around the park. So I like boat safaried up, walked down, walked back up, and then boat safari down again. Which, all in all, was pretty fun. Did I see the panda you photoed Saturday? I'm not sure I did. I've not been on Discord a lot this weekend. You photographed a panda so up close? That is cool. But yeah, so I did arrive slightly tired at the LARP Summer Festival, and then of course there was the LARP Summer Festival, which there was a lot of LARPing. Also, of course, what I did was talk to the volunteers. I now have a wristband that says "Save the Vultures." Hello, Chrysoprase. Because of course, like, they had a couple of volunteers in a spot, and seeing that I am a volunteer at my at my own zoo, I was like, hey, hello. You're volunteers, I'm volunteers, and I saw that they sold these wristbands to help gain money for all their wildlife projects, and I was like, I'll take a pink Save the Vultures, and the lady was all enthusiastic because she was a big fan of vultures. So I told her about how that is adorable. That panda is adorable. Yeah, and I saw the pictures of the otters. But that is such a cute little panda. Red pandas, the OG pandas. But yes, we'll take the random animal fact about vultures because, well, that's what I was talking about anyway. I'll grab the sloth for a hug. So what sort of happened was that so I told them about the wildlife project that the zoo where I volunteer does, and that we actually set some vultures free back into the wild, because vultures are animals that can be set free into the wild, but it needs a special project because, of course, at zoos, vultures don't learn to fly in the thermic winds. Is that even the right thing to say? Is that even the right way to say it? Hello, my brain is slightly mushy. I spent the entire Friday at the zoo, then LARPing, and then more LARPing. But but yeah, there's like the big two things of flying is one is flapping your wings, and the other is the thermiek thermal winds. There's like a technique where they glide on the winds instead of flapping their wings. And of course, the second one, vultures in captivity cannot really learn because, well, they're in captivity. Their enclosures don't often go up high enough. So there is actually a special project where the vultures get released in stages, and then at some point they will actually in one of these stages they will encounter wild vultures who are doing the thermal flying, because it's not an instinctual thing as much as it is a thing that they learn from other vultures. So when they are in contact with when they see the other vultures, they're like, oh, that's how you do it, and they can fly off, and they can fly further and further, and at some point they won't come back to the place where they started releasing them. They go further and further and further away until one day they will start little families of their own. Just realized the sloth is just out off screen. Oh man, she is warm. She's a very warm but very, very fluffy sloth. Also, it is kind of fun to go to a different zoo every now and then because they will have such a different collection of animals. I was standing next to the elephants going, I swear. But that's because the zoo where I go, that is, they have the Asian or Indian elephants. Those are the smaller elephants. You know, they are only 2 to 4 tons. I mean, I have driven cars that weigh less than that, but you know, it's only about 3 tons of elephant on average. Here they had African elephants, also known for having bigger ears and all of them having tusks. But they had an African elephant that was actually just even big for an African elephant. And he was really close to the edge as well, so I was just standing more or less next to him going, holy yeah. That was a freaking big elephant. And after that, I discovered that the thing was actually called Calimero. I do not know if... I really have no idea how widespread Calimero is as a cartoon. Because all the Dutch people I told started laughing, but I'm actually unsure if it is... Like, Calimero is like this cartoon about a bird with an eggshell on his head as a hat. And one of his signature lines is something like, roughly translated from Dutch, that, you know, that something's not fair because Calimero is small and everybody else is so big. Like, Calimero is known for being tiny. And is standing next to this huge elephant and then learning that it's called Calimero that's an experience, I can tell you. He big. Holy darn. So big. Ooh. Big boy. So big boy. So that was fun. And also they had things like hippos. Hippos are huge. I was just standing there watching hippos and all the hippos did was eat. And I'm pretty convinced that all hippos do is eat. But they did have otters. The otters were adorable. They had some pretty big things others as well. And the fun thing is, like, they had like 2 species of rhinoceros, which were exactly the species that my zoo does not have. So it was like, oh, fun, because they had like the white rhinoceros and the black one, and we have the Indian variety, which is just, you know, like they're like. All of them are obviously rhinoceros, because, you know, they share a lot of traits, but there's such a difference in their skin, like the hue of grey in their skins is different, the way their skin falls over their body is different. Some of them are slightly bigger or smaller, and the amount of horns is different, actually. We have that at my zoo, where people go, aren't rhinos supposed to have 2 horns? We're like, well, no, not every species, actually. This is because the Indian rhinos have like 1 horn, but I think a couple of the more African ones have like a larger horn and then a smaller one behind it. I am not sure what the use is of having a smaller horn behind the bigger one on your nose, but nature is weird and wonderful. It probably finds a way. Or is that Jeff Goldblum? Jeff Goldblum also finds a way. Or it's Percy, or Percival something the Rollo the Third. Life needs things to live. Yeah, exactly. Everything's not fair. You're so big, and everything else is so small. Yeah, that's probably what the elephant thinks. God, that elephant was huge. But yeah, it was that was a good zoo. And that's also the fun of visiting several zoos when you have the chance, because not every zoo has the same collection. And even if they have similar elephants or similar animals, there's still a big difference. Like a difference between elephants, between rhinos, like different species of tiger. I did not really see the tigers. They seem to be happy napping. I mean, which is fair. Tigers nap a lot. It's sort of inherently tiger. We do naps. Yeah. And then the LARP Summer Festival was amazing. Like, they had donuts. Fun fact, all the donuts were vegan. And I know there's people who are like, oh, I don't like vegan food, but I swear, vegan donuts are just fine. I really didn't taste a whole lot of difference between regular donuts and vegan donuts. And there was just, there was good food all around and good snacks and lots of water and tea, and because, all hail the bar personnel. Also, I think I might take up a little bit more calligraphy. Also, I'm going to be putting the sloth back. She's warm. Ooh. Well. Oh man, oh man. Yeah, it was all pretty good. Like, I did a short LARP about fairies, which was amazing. Something about a lot of glitter and trying to save the planet, or maybe not, or just trying to pull pranks on humans. Because, well, that is what you are fae folk for, of course. We did have fun. And we went to workshops about accessibility, and then, physical accessibility of LARP locations, but also the accessibility of, for example, of your websites. Are your LARP websites actually screen reader friendly, stuff like that. Because, that's the, that is the, do people with accessibility issues not come to your LARP because they don't want to LARP? Or do they not come to your LARP because they can't actually read where the freak they're supposed to go? Or find out if they are, if your location is actually wheelchair friendly. And I went to talks about preloaded LARPs, and to talks about character, the pre-written characters, and how you work with those. And yeah, and I might also be picking up a bit of calligraphy again, because there was somebody who did a lot of calligraphy, and then also like the medieval make everything pretty stuff. Like in Dutch it's called boekverluchting. But she gave me a couple of really cool low-key calligraphy pens. Because apparently nowadays, like, calligraphy stuff is getting more and more and more and more and more cheap. So now for like €2, instead of having to, buy like separate ink and pens that you need to maintain and stuff, you can just go to the Action or some other discount store and get like 3 things with, you know, like simple pens that work more like felt markers, but then with like really nice broad tips that you can work with. So yeah, I might have some new crafting materials. And Miki redeemed a Therapet card. Today it is the little, the black little bird with a strange kind of tiny smirk in the beak that says, "You are a whole person. You are complete." That is always a good message to hear. This card is probably also going to lead me into a whole tangent on bird shows. So thank you for redeeming that. Also mostly probably because the zoo where I went to, Beekseberge, also has what they call the bird safari. It's not really a safari, it's more a everybody, you know, you get seated on the on this you know, like they it's like a theater thing, you know, but then, you know, like they have all these steps which also serve as seats. So, you know, you need to sit your ass on some stone steps and watch some birds fly. And then on the left and on the right of the theater bit, they have like heightened things where people with the big gloves can stand and they, you know, they throw birds at each other. That is not the correct term, but, you know, like they can make the birds fly from one end of the theater to the other end of the theater. And that was pretty darn impressive, and they have like a little bit in front where they can also walk. These people have this really bad sense of humor, where I indeed later realized that if you see the show for the first time, it's really kind of funny. But after maybe the second or third time after going through the same jokes, you might at some point start thinking, you know, alright, we've heard this joke before. You know, like before the show started, a couple of kids were running loose in one of the demonstration areas, and then the voiceover basically said, "Please keep your children out of the demonstration area. There might be tigers hidden in the bushes." Also, you know, don't let your children run around demonstration areas even if there's no animals in there yet. You never know what they have already placed there, or what, or if, you know, if there is stuff in there. But okay, could be me. Though I have to say, the moment that I really lost it was basically when, you know, like they had demonstrated like a small vulture type, and they had then for the duchies, then they had an owl, and it was called Joop the Uil. Joke explanation for the non-duchies. There used to be a politician called Joop den Uil, so, you know, den Uil is basically the way, you know, owl is an owl, so, you know. So, you know, if you have a politician with the last name Owl, it is of course hilarious to name your owl after them. So I got some really good pictures of that owl, by the way, I'm pretty sure. I haven't looked through all the photos yet, but I think I have some pretty good pictures of him. Because at some point the owl landed really close to me, and I could get like all kinds of pictures of it. But then the person who was doing all the talky bits walked into the middle of the demonstration area and basically went, "Well, you know, now comes a scary part, but we're gonna do it. I'm very scared because I lost a game of rock paper scissors in the back, so that means I have to do the next bird without the glove." Because, you know, falconers and stuff, like, they all have gloves because a lot of those birds actually can sense heartbeats. So if you make them land on here and they feel your heartbeat, they will instinctually squeeze, because, you know, if they like land on a living thing and they want to eat it and it still has a heartbeat, their first instinct is to squeeze it to make it stop wriggling so much. You know, you don't want your food to wriggle either. So I was like, that sounds dangerous. What are they going to do? And I was like, yeah, well, you know, we're going to call in the next bird. Cross your fingers for me, people. And the next thing we knew, this itty bitty, like, this bird was like this big. This tiny little blue bird flew in. It was very, very beautiful. But But I was all like, yeah, okay, maybe that did not look like a bird of prey at all. So I'm like, yeah, that wasn't cheats or like an almost or a very tiny one or something. Like, okay, maybe that is indeed one that doesn't do well on gloves or on the big falconer gloves. I can also imagine that is a joke that gets really old after the second time, but or maybe even after the first one. When I said throwing birds, just imagine someone had a small bird and just threw it like a rock. Well, you know, they didn't quite throw the birds, but you know, they... Although, actually, most of the time, like, they had a bar behind them, or like a tree branch kind of thing, and they would put the bird on there, and then the bird would take off on their own. Let's get the big box of eyes. But still, you know, in the end, it was all pretty impressive. Also, if anybody in here plays Stream Raiders, a new event has started, so all the chances of new things and new loot. And currently, seeing that Miki is the only person who placed beside me, if you now place, you will probably get extra shinies if there is, or you have a very good chance of catching extra shinies. And this little worry worm is made to thank Selena for her... Bloop, 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 bloop. Where did I put Selena? My sheet is sorted, I swear. But this is for the 25th month of her being a sub on my channel. That is so long. But also, you know, this might interest Chrysoprace, but they had an eagle. She was good. Oh, she was so pretty. I was just sitting there in a stand going, Axios. Alright, let's make one that isn't purple. Yeah, and that was only the fake one. I hope they worked out, but I have pictures of the big one in flight as well. Yeah, that was also a fun thing that I thought, like, wow, I really didn't think about this. But actually, before the show started, they actually asked people to put away plushies. Just because, you know, I mean, I guess to a big bird like a huge eagle, a plushie, and I was holding Siggy. So, you know, it's like this big and brown with little eyes. I just realized that, wait a second. To an untrained eye, this of course, you know, or to like to a big bird like that, it might look like a rat or something, and they might think, hey, look, extra snack. You know, you don't want the eagle to catch your plushies, I guess. So yeah, so the only picture I could take of my otter with the eagle was with the statue of the eagle. But hey, it worked. It was pretty cool. Although I do have to admit that the birds that came after the eagle were my favorites. They were also super hard to photograph. Like, that was nigh impossible. They were called kites, and they had 3 of them, and the kites never landed. Like, during the whole presentation, they just flew around, because one of the things that apparently is also... Because, you know, the other birds get, like... They fly to and fro, and they get food, but here they would throw food at the kites, and they would dive bomb.